like to call this meeting to order. So, first and foremost, my name is Alex Hackman, so we'd just like to welcome the newest members here. I know that's the second item on the agenda as well, but it's great to see everybody in this new year for 2023. We'll go to item number 2, and we'll turn the time over to Julie.
So I'd love to welcome, we have 2 new members to welcome tonight. I'll just do really brief introductions for what I know and then let them introduce themselves. We have Rachel McPherson, who's been a longtime resident here in Iowa City and worked with us on the renaming of McPherson Park, which has been named after her dad. So we have Rachel, and then we have Dolores Mixon. Dolores and I share birthdays, so there's more twins. Dolores used to work here in the rec center, but also been a longtime Iowa City resident and involved in a lot of different community things. So maybe we'll give them a break. Have you all introduce yourselves first, and then Dolores and Rachel, you can do a little intro of yourselves. So Brian, if you want to start.
Sure. Brian Morelli. I've been lived in Iowa City for about 20 years, working in private sector and then at the university more recently. Had kids have gone all the way through the rec department. So lots of experience.
Melissa Sorenda. I live in the South District. I've also lived here about 20 years, and I've been on the commission for, I think this is the last year, so 4 years.
Dolores, we'll come back to you.
So Alex Hackman, so we've been in Iowa City since 2007 and been here for school, for additional schooling, and loved it so much decided to stick around. So have 4 wonderful daughters who keep me busy and engaged, and we love the Parks and Rec Department. We're grateful for the city and staff and all that they do. And so been on Parks and Rec Commission, I think, for 3 years now.
My name is Chris Ognay, and I've lived in Iowa City since 2020. This is my 3rd year on the Parks and Rec Commission too. I came here for a job. I'm on the faculty of the law school at the university, and I teach real estate law and banking.
I'm Connie Moore, and I was born in Iowa City, so I swam in Mercer when it was an outdoor pool. And took lessons there. Vivid memories, because we used to have to go there for 7th and 8th grade to swim for PE class. Very traumatizing. But I did not go to college here. I'm like, I'm out of here. And so I left for about 10 years, and then had my first daughter. I'm like, Iowa City's pretty great. So I moved back and been now back for 22 years since then. And yeah, I'm a physical therapist at Grantwood AEA. So we're in the schools.
Missy Forbes. I am also a local, born and raised here, and swam at Mercer before Connie did. So, I have been on the commission for about a year. Also have children that went through the Parks and Rec Department and love all of their programming, and happy to be a part of the commission.
Rachel.
I'm Rachel McPherson. My dad lived here all my life, so I've been coming here since '82, but I lived here for about 7 years now. And I work part-time teaching Shakespeare in public schools with Riverside Theater. And I'm excited to be here.
Go on. Welcome.
Dolores Mixon. I'm originally from Michigan, by way of Georgia. I've been in Iowa City maybe 4 times. I work for, I'm retired Newton State Prison, correction officer. Went back to Georgia, correction officer. I'm back here now. I'm at Oral B. Well, no. Now I'm on disability, but Oral B is where I work. I work here at the rec center in Mercer, and that's it.
Very good. Welcome, and we're glad to have you. Ask Connie what her intro night was like sometime.
Oh, wow.
It was a little different.
Yeah. I started a few months, like, I think August or September. So it was a cool night.
All right.
Just this year, yeah.
Welcome, and we're so grateful that you're here. If you have questions, be sure to just let us know. So we'll now move to item number 3, as far as the election of officers.
So Election of officers, we first asked our current chair, are you interested in continuing?
Happy to serve again. If somebody has a stronger desire to serve as chair, happy to step down as well.
So there is no term limit on
I
it.
nominate Alex.
So we have a nomination for Alex for a chair. Is there a second?
Second.
I think you can say all in favor. Okay, now you can take over.
Thank you very much. Humbled and grateful for this opportunity to serve. Thank you very much. Is there a nomination for a co-chair? Or vice chair? I guess.
Vice chair.
Vice chair is the official.
Is there a vice chair right now?
There it is.
Chris.
It is Chris.
Can
I nominate Chris.
Do
you want
I can
it?
handle the power.
All in favor, say aye.
Wait, did you have a second?
Oh,
I'll
I thought-
second.
Okay,
One.
okay, yeah.
I thought Tommy did, yes, he did, yeah. All in favor, say aye, yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Well, thank you, Chris, for your willingness to.
I think I have to do it once.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right, moving on to item number 4, so approval of the minutes from November 9th. And hope everybody saw the corrections or updates that came through from Gabe, and just want to thank Gabe for his diligence, and it's quite a task to put the minutes together, so thank you so very much for doing such a diligent job every month. Do I have an approval for the minutes?
I move approval.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move on to, wasn't sure if there was public comment for items not on the agenda.
Julie's here for Kiwanis.
Okay.
Okay, as we move into the park project, I'm going to turn it over to Don Martyr. Sadly, probably his last presentation to you as he's happily retiring from Standard Associates. Don's done a number of our parks throughout the system, so we're very, very thankful to him. What we'll need tonight, though, is he'll go do each park, and after each park, if you do a time for any commission questions or comments, if there's time, if there's any public comments, and then do a motion to recommend or not recommend after each one of the 4 individual projects. Okay.
So that's for each part?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you tonight. Nick in our office is also a landscape architect, and is here tonight as well. So the first part we're going to talk about is Kiwanis Park. Well, that's great here.
Any other techies in the room?
Gabe, to us.
It was working. Remember I said this wasn't so easy. So I'll just kind of go ahead and get started, and it'll pop up here. So we'll start with Kiwanis Park. So, it's located just south of Willow Creek Park. We made some improvements a few years ago. There we go. Thanks. So we just kind of, it should have been in your packet, but so Kiwanis Park is we're on the west side of town, but just south of Willow Creek, where we made some improvements before, and then Hunter's Run Park, and again, another neighborhood park on the west side of 218 or 380 there. So for Kiwanis Park, I'll go back here. So Kiwanis Park, so it's north-south there. The central area is where we're concentrating on. So we have a perimeter sidewalk around there where all the playground area is. You can kind of see, these are existing photographs, so some of the slides, we have tunnels, we have a shelter that'll stay, and then also a sand play, so there's a lot of different things going on. Very unique park, more natural in use as well, berms. And so with that, the process we went through was we had an initial public meeting out at the park site, invited the neighborhoods to come and provide input on what they liked about the park and then things that they'd like to improve, with the idea that we wanted to renovate the play equipment and then to make sure it's something that they would be supportive of, because it's very well liked today. So we did then receive input, and then from that input we went and provide some overall master plan design for the park. And so what we're kind of showing here is some of the improvements. So we have 2 slides that are going to go in similar to the locations now. And we also have some hammock swings. So that's kind of something unique. The play manufacturers are always coming out with new things, and so we're looking at those in a couple shaded areas. We also have limestone steps that'll go up to these areas, so we have elevation change on some of the berms. So again, kind of sticking with the natural feel. We also have a large play area in the middle, play structure, and also then looking at 2 to 5-year-olds as well. So we had the survey, and with that, then we had results of a couple options that we showed, and earth tones, and then these structures that you see here are similar to what we're going to be doing. So there's kind of a rope climber that's going to be the primary centerpiece there, and then the slide shack here, and then again, I mentioned the hammock, and then we'll have, this is just an illustration, an example, but we'll have limestone stairs along with the 2 different slides in the park. So a lot of opportunities for pads and circulation. As you know, out there we want to redo the surfacing and then also kind of clean up. There will be a sand area. As well that we're going to have, but we are going to take out all the retaining walls, all the wood structures, and go mostly with regrade those areas and help with the maintenance of the park as well.
So really the nature play area stays very similar in context to what it was before. We heard that very clearly from the neighborhood, that they wanted to keep it the same, or they wanted to keep the feel of the nature place. So kind of the eastern side where there's boulders and a lot of paths, not much change happens over there. It's just the main piece of play equipment comes out and is replaced with that really unique wood climber. On the west side, a lot of the landscape boards come out and replaced with big rocks. And so we still have this kind of unique climbing view. So we've had really positive comments from the neighbors. And I know Judy, the neighborhood association person, is here tonight, probably going to speak to it too.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any questions.
Yes, other questions at this time from the commission?
Where is this park?
On the west side, so do you know where Willow Creek Park is? Benton, it's just on the south end of Willow Creek Park.
I just had a comment. I really like the hammock swing. Like thinking of a child who is in a wheelchair, they could be transferred into that and enjoy something. That's a way I always look at the pieces. Like if you can't walk, can you do something? And so there was something that a child could do.
Also thought about accessibility as well. It's definitely more of a unique park compared to some of the others, looking for a lot of the natural features.
One, the thing got me thinking, are there places where people could just bring their own hammocks and set up? Like if you go on campus, people use hammocks so much, they just, in the shade trees and such.
Maybe not right around the playground, but throughout Willow Creek Park, there's probably are spots that could be.
It's very wooded in that area.
Yeah.
So they're probably.
Looking at the existing playground photos compared to this, the existing playgrounds, it seems like everything's really integrated and doesn't stand out from the landscape, but looking at these, it's hard to imagine them being that integrated. Is that a concern, or is it maybe just the context of these photos that make it hard to?
I think it's mostly the context of the photos, because really the outer brim area stays very similar, so these are going to be nestled down, kind of like the old equipment was. us too, so it's probably much more just if you're seeing photos that it's a different context.
The old one's like metal, like the slide is like that metal stuff you can burn yourself on. It's just like old, yeah. I don't think it's in the pictures. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from the commission before we open it up for public comment? At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. If you could state your name as well.
Hi, I'm Judy Foll. I'm president of the Tynekai neighborhood. We're very excited about the changes because, yes, it needed to be updated. We're so glad that we'll be able to have a lot of the rocks to climb all over and the slopes to go up and down. And the kids love those tunnels of the cement to go through and around. And I think reducing some of the bushes that have gone around the side that we used to have work days where we'd actually go out as a neighborhood and help try to thin out and remove weeds. And some of those just have gotten out of control for anybody to work on. So it's nice to have it. And the Kiwanis have always been very supportive of it being a natural area. And the only question that I had some of the kids ask was the structure that has the bright red roof, it won't have a bright red roof, right?
Don't know yet.
Okay, if it could still be, it still could be the brown or something that it's.
Yeah, so we're just to the point where we're just starting, if everything goes good tonight, we're finalizing everything, so we have
Yeah,
another
but
few
generally
They're
hours.
natural
People
robes,
are-
not colored robes.
Yeah.
Earth
People
tones
are kind of
seem to be a
happy
strong comment.
with that look. And excited that, sounds like we'll be getting it in this summer, which will help undo the problem of the chaos of Abbey Lane being torn up all summer for the sewer to go down the middle of it. So it gives us something to look forward to. We could use that. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate it. And at this time, I'm looking for a vote on
Should
recommendation.
recommend.
Yeah, motion to recommend the proposal as outlined.
Yeah, I would recommend as long as the red roof is not red. Or with the,
You got it.
keeping with the earth tones, I recommend the proposal.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor for the recommendation as proposed, except for the red roof going to more earth tones?
Can I just ask, would that be if there's other options?
If there's other options,
Yes.
yes, if there are other
Yes.
options, yeah.
All in favor of that proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Appears to be unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to E for Hunter's Run Park.
So Hunter's Run, again, is on the west side of 380. And you can kind of see it extends up into the north area as well. Our concentration is basically in the play area. I'll show you some, it's just a photo there. So that is what the current situation is with the play equipment. Kind of there's two areas identified on site. And so the proposed improvements there, what we're looking at, you can kind of see the two areas. What we're looking at is there's a lot of trees, so there's a lot of good shade that you don't often, sometimes it's hard to have. And so we want to utilize that shade. And so you can kind of see the shape that we were proposing early on with this when we had reached out to the public for input. And then we actually had gone out to playground manufacturers, for 5 different playground manufacturers that submitted designs for that space. And then we were able to present that to the public for them to comment on. So show you some of that. So here again, we did the survey process. And this again was the tally, earth tones. And then they voted for option 1, which is play structure resembling that. So again, we'll work with the earth tones on that, but that is what's proposed then in that space. So we are going to elevate that area a little bit. There's been some drainage concerns, so we'll elevate that play space. But there's going to be a lot of green space still around that whole park. So it's really just concentrating on where those items are today. And we will make sidewalk connections. Right now, it's kind of rock to the playground, and there's a paved trail that goes to the north across the stream, the creek. But we'll tie into that, so it's kind of a looping system for people to walk as well. Did that answer any questions, or does anyone have anything?
For commission questions.
Do we have a picture of like the second, you know, because there was a vote, but it was just by one vote that the second option won, or this option won.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Maybe a little larger.
I
I
didn't
don't know.
bring it,
I
but-
couldn't quite, oh, okay.
Maybe if we-
Oh, I guess they are, yeah.
Yeah, it's really small.
It's really
Which one?
small. I need a magnifying glass.
When we looked at it, we decided, when we get down and when it happens that you have two that are voted very closely,
Yeah.
then we take over and look at how it would fit with the site and also which manufacturer and how many, you know, we start looking at how many play options there are on each thing, and it's usually pretty close, but that's how we land on a final option if it's really a close vote.
Which was the second choice?
Just one in the middle with the white.
Yeah. The one in the middle, which would be similar to what we just put in at Whispering Meadows last summer. So we also look at kind of a mix of playground equipment throughout the rest of the city too. So.
I'm like not in the place where Hunters Run Park is.
So it is very far west, maybe 10.
Right after you cross the bridge over 218 on Roy,
Okay.
you take a right on Duck Creek,
Okay.
and that winds you back there.
Got it.
It's really not that far away from Willow Creek and Kiwanis Park. So when we had the two neighborhood meetings, there was some crossover because a lot of the
Oh, sure.
families use both.
I can see that.
Okay, I got it.
Again, I was just looking at it from the lens of could a kid in a wheelchair use, is there something on there that they can do? Because it looked like a lot of climbing and
Right,
things.
so all the trails, all the paths will be ADA accessible.
Okay.
And then, and so everything's gonna be graded and accessible. And then, there's different components on there, but yeah, not the whole thing. The whole thing is not.
I mean, you can't make the whole
Right,
thing, just
right.
maybe
But there's
something to do.
there's several, lower areas that the little bit will play with, And then there's the rope as well, that kind of rope component to it that you're starting to see as kind of a trend as well.
And so the surface is going to be like wood chips or?
It'll be the engineered wood fiber that you typically see.
Engineered wood fiber.
And the reason for that is just the expense of the rubberized surfacing. Usually it's kind of that or the rubberized surfacing. It's about 5 times more expensive because it needs concrete and then the surfacing itself. So if you notice that, again, Willow Creek, we did do those improvements.
So Willow Creek is kind of the companion one here, and that's the one that's our most accessible of all of our play equipment at Willow Creek, so that every piece of equipment we put in meets ADA guidelines, obviously, we wouldn't put it in without, but Willow Creek has more of the ramps and more than some of the others.
Sure, and it's not too far away from
Yeah, and
that.
so does Willow, or Villa Park, just a little bit north of Willow Creek. So it's got some extra accessibility components to it.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
I like trying to keep the natural trees and shading so as much as possible, obviously, with lover of trees. So all that we can do from that standpoint as well. That's great. Any other questions from the commission? Is there a motion to approve the recommendations for Hunters Run Park as outlined? Earth tones, I believe, was also counting if available. So,
All motion to approve.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Okay, thank you.
Victory Day, or Happy
We'll
Holiday.
do Happy Hollow next.
We're happy.
So Happy Hollow, again, we're kind of in the northeast part of Iowa City. Happy Hollow is, again, residential park. Improvements have been made over time with the shelter and restroom building there. And now we reached out and looking for improvements there. We had a public meeting looking for additional improvements. One of the things that came out of that was the ball field area and wanting, right now that's all seeded and mown, and previously it had granular surfacing to the infield, and a lot of the neighbors wanted that back. So that's one of the things that's going to be one of the improvements. And then the other is playground, that there's the existing playground there.
So I'll explain what's going on with this. You don't have playground choices for this one tonight. We did solicit proposals for the playground. We got 5 of them in. We showed those to a small group of the neighbors from up there. They asked for more and different. So we're going to take it out of this particular part of the proposal. We've asked for new playground proposals from all the suppliers, and we will be putting that in as an in-house staff project, so it won't be a part of the larger construction bid. This construction bid will include the pathways, the ADA paths, it will include the ball field renovation. Playground will come as a separate project. You'll probably see those playground choices next meeting or the meeting after. So it will still happen likely, probably end of summer, early fall next year for the playground. But the ball field improvements and the pathway that you see there, that will be included as we bid this all out as one construction packet. We just didn't quite feel ready to show you the playground proposals on this one yet, so.
Would you mind going back 2 slides? So that street to the east is North Dodge, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry, that's, is it North Dodge? It's South Gov, it's Governor.
Yeah.
It's Dodge, you're right. Yeah, there we go. That building to the north of the park, what is that? Is that the city's?
No.
Is that public housing authorities?
Used to be DHS.
Is that the one that's abandoned? Like,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's like boarded up and,
Governor.
every time I pass this and I see our park so adjacent to it, I think this is really a problem.
I don't think it's city, and you bring up a good question, I'm not 100% sure it's not one of our subsidized things, but I know the park boundary doesn't even include that entire hillside on the north side. So that's always been an issue with this park, is the resident, everyone around it wants us to do things in that hillside behind the basketball courts that's not actually city property. So that would tell me that's probably not, but that is a good point to bring up.
I mean, there is like the hedge buffer, I suppose, but I guess I'm troubled that there's this like really blighted, aside from like being unattractive, like it just feels like a really, like a eyesore in this area that is adjacent to a space that is dedicated to like recreation and children and families. I would really love if staff could find out the nature of what is going on with that building
We can figure that out in a few minutes.
for another meeting.
What were some of the concerns with the proposed playground equipment that the neighbors didn't like?
It was kind of the same kind of proposals you've just seen for the other parks. And they didn't feel like it was quite unique enough for Happy Hollow, so.
This time we'll open up for any questions or additional comments from the commission.
It wasn't unique enough, or explain that. I mean, all of the parks have a relatively homogeneous playground. I mean, some of them are a little more spread, and some of them are a little more compact. What exactly are you talking about?
Lawyer.
How much longer you want?
It was like an explanation with no description.
So, this neighborhood in particular has been very careful on all their choices. As you know, we get a lot of feedback when any kind of change is made in the park. So, all I can tell you is we had 5 or 6 proposals that we showed, and they wanted to see some other different options beyond that. So, we're going to go ahead and ask and see if there's other things within the playground budget that could be done that are a little bit different, but within the budget, within our safety parameters and EDA parameters.
So do they want something like bigger, fancier, more avant-garde, a little more toned down?
More in the nature of the historic neighborhood. And I'm not exactly sure what that means yet.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it like a Queen Anne place? Like, I just didn't understand. I'm being like somewhat flippant for the humor of it, but also, you know, we are responsible for making recommendations relative to the infrastructure of the parks. I'm just not quite understanding like what about the proposed infrastructure, which I have to assume is relatively on par with the infrastructure for the rest of the parks. is unacceptable here. I didn't know if you had any sense of that, or they just were literally like, go try something else.
Basically, yes. Good. So we will, so in the end, you'll probably see that the original 5 plus any additional ones that we get. So we're getting an option to see if there are other options. We'll come back with after that.
Thank you.
I guess one of the other questions that I had is just for other people that might be biking to the park or other kind of places, for bike, not necessarily block out, but at least to store bikes as opposed to just camp on the side.
Yeah.
So for
bike-
some of these other parks as well.
Yeah, so the bicycle racks have generally not been included within the budgets of each project. It's something we've been able to come in and retrofit or add in later, especially when we have a lot of neighborhood input asking for it. We recently added more to Weatherby or a new grill there. So those kind of park furnishings come later. They're not necessarily with each project.
So I'm kind of looking for a recommendation here of just the
Just the
proposal.
accessible paths and the baseball field at this point.
I'll motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Accessible paths, field as outlined?
Aye.
Here's the unanimous. Thank you very much. Hickory Hill.
So Hickory Hill Park, it's a very large park, it's up at the north end as you come in off Dodge and Conklin Drive. So there's a parking lot and shelter there, and we just want to renovate this area. So this is a view from the parking lot to the shelter. So the restroom shelter combination, and then the parking lot itself. So the idea is to separate the structure. So the city has Romtech as a product for we've been using pre-manufactured restrooms and shelters, and so we're going to do this similar to the other improvements that we've made in Iowa City for
So
that.
Separating them will do 2 things. First of all, it's kind of awkward when you have a shelter reservation and someone wants to come use the restroom, which is right there. So this puts them far enough apart so you can have 2 different user groups. The other thing it really does is moves the restrooms a lot closer right now, close to the parking area. And we think that'll be a benefit for people coming to hike or walk, or just easier accessibility from the parking lot for that. So it's a little bit different layout than what we've been used to, but we did show this to the leadership of Friends of Hickory Hill, and they like it. It does include a nice little storage space off the back of the restroom for their equipment. They, a very large volunteer group in this park that go in and do invasive species removal and different things. So the restroom is sized to include that storage area as well.
So you can kind of see we just got off we'll usually maintain existing trees and protect those that are well established in the park there, and then maintain that existing sidewalk, and then do that shelter area and make those improvements. And then there's walkways that go into the park as well, so that'll link up well.
Which style shelter is it? Is there
So that is a little bit of a trade-off on this. We had hoped to do a Romtech shelter similar to what we have at McPherson or Creekside, or Creekside now, or Willow Creek. It's actually we're looking at coverwork shelters similar to what we have at Scott Park, Cardigan, Reynolds Miller, Villa. We can have either the wooden or the coverwork. So this one would be a coverwork shelter. The budget doesn't allow for both to be.
Space-wise, it's 24 by 24 covered shelter space, so it's pretty good. It has outlets, we put blender to it. So.
How big's the one that's there now, the shelter?
It's kind of an odd shape, but it's
Yeah.
like 27 by 24 or something. So
We
we're not
think
much
it's the same
different.
number of picnic tables.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an
Okay.
odd shape, kind of.
Yeah,
So
it
this
is a-
this
yeah.
will work a little better, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, do all the new shelters have electricity? Like, do you know?
No, not all of them.
It kind of depends where they're located. So we've done some, and electricity sometimes is strength of Scott Park. We ended up, it was coming from too far. So I think we ended up with solar panels on one of them. But sometimes it just depends on the cost. justifying spending $25,000 to get electricity to the structure. Just doesn't, isn't in the budget or warrant, I think, sometimes, but most of the time we do electricity too, I think, so. But this one definitely would.
So this one didn't have a neighborhood meeting per se because there's not many choices with this one. It's not a playground choice or anything. And there's not a lot of residents within the quarter-mile radius of this part of the park. So that's why instead we met with the Friends of the Hickory Hill leadership. Since they have a lot of interest in this particular park.
Looking at the placement of the shelter and the restroom, is it correct that people coming from the park will be coming to the shelter first, and then they have to go beyond that to the restrooms?
Correct.
So they're still going to be kind of traipsing through the people who are using the shelter?
I think that's a detail yet to, whether the path will work or if it would be maybe a soft surface one way or some way so you don't have to walk through the shelter to get there for sure.
Yeah. So currently we've got a shelter off to the side, so, and then this path kind of goes through, so.
There's the trail system there too. There's one on what would be up on your screen there too, and there's one down bottom left corner. So those are actually the two of the more popular entry spots. There is one further past the shelter, but there's other entrances there. So the parking lot, it gets you closer to the parking lot and two of the entrances, and keeps the shelter kind of more secluded. Good question.
Any other questions or comments?
What is on the shelter, there's kind of a little extended piece that's shaded, does that signify anything?
On the shelter?
Oh, the shelter?
There's a little square and then there's the.
Oh, there's a grill.
Above it, the longer, yeah, that.
So this is existing sidewalk,
And
and
that's.
then we're just
the
extending
sidewalk.
it, and then, so this would all be concrete path, so you can walk up, yeah. So people can walk up.
Is it a very brief thing? Like,
All right, you didn't explain it very well.
Where is the existing shelter now if we're looking at this map?
It's really, it takes up this whole space here.
Oh,
Because you get your restrooms in this area.
You see the octagon
You
shape?
guys see the contour?
Oh, I see it, okay.
It's essentially the very same spot.
Good questions. I have not necessarily just here, but are there other like education opportunities that we could take advantage of, as far as trees and other things that are in the park, just to help educate people that are coming to the park?
Yes, and I think there is more of that at the other Hickory Hill Park entrances. So it'd be a great Eagle Scout project, and we get those from time to time. That's typically what we rely on for additional.
Yes, just great opportunity to educate people about the great trails and parks. All right, so move approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Great.
Well, I just want to thank you, and as Julie mentioned, next week's my last week, but I do want to thank everybody here, and I know I was able to work with Terry Trueblood his last year here, and then with Mike Moran and with Julie and her team, and it's been great, and just great to be involved in this project. I grew up just 20 miles from here, and then so it's just great to know the community and be able to be involved in the future of that. So
Thank you so very much, John.
Thanks.
And thank you for your signature on all of our park designs.
It's just in the concrete. It's really small.
Right. We'll move on to item number 7, turn time over to Brad.
All right. Well, this is the time of year, each year, where we ask Commission to review fees and charges with us as we head into FY24. So July 1st is technically when FY24 would begin. And so usually we alternate years with our submission of fee increases. So we did increase fees last year for the FY23, which we're currently in right now. Typically we would take a year off. However, as you all are aware. Every time you go to the grocery store, hit the gas pump, we are in that high inflationary environment right now where a lot of those cost of goods and services are being passed along to us as we buy supplies for our programs, overhead charges, everything else that goes along with supplying those programs and events to the community. And of course, oftentimes we have to pass those charges along. So what I've submitted this year is I've put in 2 proposals, factoring in that usually we do take that year off. But I also put in a proposal generally looking at a 2 to 5% fee increase with most of the programs and services that we offer. There are some caveats. In the right-hand column in your packet there, you'll see the percentage increase of the second proposal, which has most of the fee increases in there. Most of the time it's 2 to 5%. However, there are some instances that you'll probably note that it's 10, 20%. If you look at those fees, usually they're lower fees. For us to get up to the next dollar amount, sometimes it's a bigger jump. So the smaller the dollar amount to begin with, the bigger percentage it is to get into that next dollar. We do that more from a customer service perspective so that people aren't coming in and paying $25.47 for our program. We like to either be at $25 or $26 or whatever the case might be. There's a few caveats in there. Farmers market is one of them. Last year we did increase the fees for that. One of the things that we also added, City Council had voted to add insurance, liability insurance. So all the vendors that are participating in our farmers market are now required to carry a $1 million policy or up for liability insurance, which has added an additional fee to them in addition to the increase that we did. So this year anyways, the proposal in that fee increase portion has suggested no fee increase there. Some of the recreation programs that we had, I've made some changes in that recommendation is to increase the range. That gives us a little bit more flexibility with how we offer that programming. So for $1, sometimes that's more of just like a commitment to coming. If they put that $1 down for the program, they might be more apt to actually show up to the program. We have a few instances with our adaptive and inclusive recreation. So like a planning committee where we would want to have like maybe $1 where they come in and maybe there's some snacks provided, but they help plan some of the events so that we get more input in. On the higher side of that, sometimes there's some items that we want to do, maybe a bigger program or a longer program. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility there. With the swimming pool and our other admissions that we have, or other admission-based offerings, we suggested no fee increase there. We also suggested no fee increase for the group swim lessons, as that's a big initiative for us as the Every Child Learns to Swim. We wanted to keep that as affordable as possible. We also have that Rec Assist discount that's available to people as well, in addition to our swim lesson scholarship program that can actually make it free. But even on, for anybody coming in, we want to make that as affordable as possible. We've also, you'll notice that we've taken out the private swim lessons this year. That's something that we're moving away from to really focus on our group swim lesson efforts. We still have our adaptive swim lessons in there as well, but our focus moving forward is really going to be on, if we're going to be trying to get every child to learn in Iowa City to learn how to swim, we want to make sure that we have enough pool availability for everybody to do that and instructor availability. And I think the water fitness, you'll see an increase in that as well. We were charging $4 per session for water fitness, which is the same as our drop-in fee, but there's a programming element to that as well. So we wanted to increase that, and it's just $1 increase from what we had been charging. So those are the proposed fee schedule that we have for FY24. And that's up to you to make the decision if you would want to keep fees as is, or if you would seek to do the small increase that we have proposed.
I appreciate the targeted increases and keeping what we can for swimming programs, especially as is. Do you anticipate next year going back to that same increase
I think our thought is, kind of when Julie and I talked about this, is that we'd be looking for a fee increase this year because inflation has been so high. Hopefully, that consumer price index and inflation rates are starting to come down a bit, so that next year we might be, hopefully, in a little bit more of a normal environment, in which case we probably would consider the no fee increase at that time.
Yeah, it's such a balancing act for us because obviously you want to keep things as affordable as possible, but our expenses rising are real too. So we have to show some initiative to recover some of the increase. But it is up to you for your recommendation. If you'd like to do that this year or hold off another year, we'll go forward with either way.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the dog parks. There's no increase.
Correct.
what's
Yeah. So one mission-based program with the daily fees that people were bringing in. Second of all, that's actually one of our highest revenue areas, and one of the concerns that we have for people that frequent the dog parks on a regular basis is what is that money being used towards? So we've been trying to provide additional amenities to those dog parks. We've added agility equipment in this last couple years, but really, in some instances, there's only so many things that you can add. We still wanted to keep that green space feel when you're out there, and so because of the revenue to expense disparity there, we've just elected to not increase that at this time.
You touched on some of the items, Brad, as well, about, so of course the Rec Assist and other programs to make parks and recreation more accessible for others that may not have the means. Could you maybe highlight those just again, or speak to some of those more broadly as well?
Sure, yeah.
Who remembers?
So our Rec Assist program, it used to be entitled our Low Income Discount Program, and we wanted to rebrand that so that we could communicate the benefits of that to the community in a better way, I think, and not have it possibly being as stigmatizing. And so by renaming it Rec Assist, it gives us a little bit more branding power with that as well. But it's essentially the same thing where folks can come in, they only have to apply once per year, and it's valid for their entire family or the individuals that are out there, residents. So it's an income-based program. So if they're on some different government programs, if they're involved with that, if they're involved with the cities, utility discount program is another consideration there. If they're involved with any of those, or if they aren't and they fill out the income part of that, if that meets our guidelines, they receive 50% off of pretty much all the programs that we have available to the community. It doesn't include admission. It does not include admissions. So that's different. But for all the programs and most of the things that we offer, they can receive a 50% discount. And so even on passes, they're able to receive that 50% discount as well.
I just had a question, and I don't recall specifically what you had proposed as an increase or whatever, and I think that most of the programming wasn't having an increase as far as in the rec guide and stuff like that, from what I recall. My question
you're
is,
saying from last season to this season?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember specifically what was increased, but one of the things I appreciate about the programming is that it is really affordable. But because I get, inflation and stuff like that, would your department consider either increasing the percentage that people that qualify for Rec Assist get, or even extending who qualifies for that in some cases if we have to continue the process of increasing or increase programs that you didn't put an increase on this year.
I think it's safe to say that we try to do that anyway if there's extenuating circumstances. The other thing we have is with the swim scholarships, we've done everything from helping with transportation for that and swimsuits and just
towels and goggles and
anything they need to get into the swim lesson program. So we're pretty fortunate in what we can provide, but we're also asked to be realistic with what it's costing.
And I mean, $1 increase isn't that big of a deal, but again, you know, that's, I can't speak for everybody, that it's not a big deal,
Yeah.
so.
So one of the things that we've really been doing, kind of going back to the Rec Assist, is making more of a concerted effort that we're getting out to groups. We're talking about the ability for people to be able to do that. We've included in our activity guides. We've been highlighting that a lot more, and really just trying to share that more. Like, especially one of the things with our adaptive and inclusive recreation participants, we found that a lot of people didn't even know that program existed, and so now we're including it in like a little handbook that we provide out to them with all the different programs that we have each season. Some information on how to get involved with Rec Assist and how to apply for that. So hopefully we're being able to save them some fees that they didn't even know necessarily about the program. So.
And does the Rec Assist only apply to like the programs and stuff like that, or can you do that for like birthday party rentals and stuff like that?
Does not apply for rentals.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but for passes and programs.
Right, okay,
Yep.
sorry, that didn't really.
No, yeah.
And
That's a great question.
about the rentals, the shelters, it says for 5 hours, and then looks like it's between I guess the proposed is between $19 and $118. So what?
Sure.
So is it 5 hours for 118, or?
It depends on the park and the size of the facility, because we have so many different varying size of shelter houses that some seat like 15 would be maybe like pushing it, and then we have some other shelters that are much larger, and we also have some enclosed shelters versus outdoor open air.
So it's 5 hours to put the total for the.
I'm sorry,
It's
say-
5 hours for.
Yes, so
$19.
we rent those in 5-hour blocks.
What about just specifically the city park shelters? How much are they? Let's
We-
say Lower City Park.
Gate those.
We have so many different ones that it does vary.
Yeah, it really depends on the capacity, and that's the largest part, as Brad said, because like there's City Park Shelter number 6 that holds 132 people, and that can be like pretty pricey compared to the other ones, but like there's a lot of small, in Lower City Park, were you asking Lower or Upper City?
I'm asking Lower.
Lower City Park, yeah, there's a bit more variety because there's about twice as many shelters in that area, so the prices can kind of vary depending on the size. but-
Okay, all right.
Sorry about that.
No, I was just.
Yeah, so your one that holds the 132 people is gonna be on the higher end of that, where we used to have that little one that was over by the city park rides. It was, right, hardly held anybody there, so that would be on the low end of that, and everything in between.
It does seem like, I used to teach Hispanic students in trailer parks, and they often use those. It was a great asset to them. So I don't know if, I don't know. I think it would be nice if somehow that could be, like Missy was saying, part of
Part of
the
discount.
scholarship or something, because it would just be very helpful and would foster community and bring people together. Anyway, as well as this one lesson. Thank you.
It's something we could consider, yeah.
One way with that too is you don't, as long as the shelter's open and no one has it reserved, you can use it at any time.
Okay.
So it's just if you really want a specific shelter.
I see, okay.
Most weekends it doesn't matter. On a holiday weekend, you probably will run into every one of them being rented, but typically there's walk-in availability, even at City Park during most
Okay, I
summer
wondered,
days.
because I've just kind of walked in sometimes and thought, uh-oh. is
There's
it
only
legal?
one-
Yeah, and you're able to do that,
Okay,
yeah,
then-
as long as it's not reserved for.
Then never.
There's only one shelter in City Park that's not first come, first served, and that's the enclosed shelter, which is only open like half the year, and it's with a security deposit and
Okay.
such. But
Great, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
So is there a motion to approve of the fee increase as proposed by Brett?
So you could propose it either with the fee increase, or you could make a motion to propose no fee increase for this year, with 2 options.
I propose the fee increase for this year.
I second that.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much, Brad. Now we'll move on to the reports from city staff.
Hang on, a couple things that I got. The reason I walked in at the very last second is we got to spend 3 hours with the city council this afternoon. Yay. We went through the capital improvement program budgets. So I'm happy to report that it's looking like everything that I presented back in November is going to stand the way I proposed it then. And we didn't really have any changes to our capital budget at this point. That doesn't mean it won't change in future years as we move through, but the projects you saw tonight are solid in their funding, obviously, and next year's projects are looking good. So we had some discussion about City Park pool replacement, the estimate we're putting in there now is about $10 million. That includes a process where starting later this spring, we'll do a consultant selection process to get a new consultant / designer, pool architect on board. And then starting late spring through the summer and fall, we have a whole other public input process. So we'll have a review of all the engineering studies of City Park Pool. We'll have public input again. We'll probably have some sort of statistically valid survey again to really nail down a design for a final design for the pool. And hope to have it out to in 2024. So this is 2023. 2024 goes out to bid by the end of summer, or actually probably early summer. And then you can most likely plan on the pool being closed for all of 2025 for construction. And potentially shoulder seasons on shoulder parts on either side. So right now, we stay open through Labor Day. It could be that year before construction, we might have to close like mid-August in order to get a jump start on demolition before the weather, while we're still in construction season. And then we would hope to open first thing in 2026. There's a lot of ifs and questions about how that could happen, but that's in there. Yeah.
So 3 questions.
Yeah.
What is being done with the data from the statistically valid survey and the other round of strategic planning relative to the City Park Pool?
So that'll be considered or given to the new consultants when they're started, they're kind of the starting point to go through.
Are we duplicating? Are we like re-spending money again for the same project? Like, did we already spend money on this and now we're spending more public money on this again?
Yes.
And this is driven, I assume, by some level of opposition to what came out of the first exercise with respect to City Park Pool?
Yes. There was, I think the thought being there is so much public input towards the end or throughout that entire process that the council wants to make sure we go through another deliberate process that gives adequate input time and adequate input to all members of the community. It'll be interesting to figure out how we do that so that all voices are heard in this conversation, and I'm sure it'll be a long and drawn out.
I would like to know for next meeting, and I know City Park Pool is only one component of the larger strategic plan but I would like to know the cost of that for all the consultants, like all in, and what you think the projected cost will be to do this on a focused basis with just City Park Pool.
So with a $10 million budget, it's usually about 10 to 12% would be the design costs for what the new contract would be, including all the public input. So I can tell you that much for the new design and the new process. So probably, let's just say 10 to 15% to give us plenty of room. And I can get you the cost of what we did on
10 to 15% of 10 million? And is that 10 million, because I remember we talked about this earlier, is that $10 million that we think will be necessary for the renovation of the pool, is that within the city's general bonding capacity, or is that something that will entail like a vote and an increase in like a property tax or a sales tax?
So at this point, the 10 million is included in the overall CIP budget and is within our bonding capacities. If it went much above that, then we'd have to look at other funding options. But at this point, it's within the capital improvement budget overall.
So setting City Park aside, Mercer. Was Mercer part of the discussion of the council? Is that renovation expansion project part of what was submitted as part of the capital budget for off years?
So the capital budget goes out 5 years.
Right.
City Park is 2.5, 3 years out. The rec master plan said, let's get City Park done first, and then reevaluate both Robert A. Lee Pool and Mercer Pool and expansion based on the attendance numbers and use numbers that we have between now and then. So none of the funding for the rest of those projects is in that 5-year timeline. They're all listed on our unfunded list, which
For
is
further discussion later.
Further
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay. All right, that's what I wanted to know.
I have a question sort of related. If basically the input process is going to be redone, what will be done differently to get a different outcome, or how will you?
Yeah, how will we done? I don't know that we have a full answer to that yet. But what I would suspect we will do is working with whoever the consultant ends up being. We'll go through the feedback received from the last one. So we know that there was a call for a lot more lap lanes. So I'm thinking we'll end up with 2, maybe 3 design proposals right off the bat of here's 3 different options for what can be done in the city park within the bounds of the current fence line, with the bathhouse. And then that's probably what the public input will be based on, probably with statistic and valid survey first, quite honestly. I'm not sure. Still don't know. And then that'll be part of the selection process for a consultant. We want to make sure we get a consultant that understands the depth of the public conversation that's happened about this project and is used to managing this level of public input on the project. So it'll be interesting and it will be challenging, I'm sure. And in the end, I know we will get some sort of new tool. I just don't have any idea what it will look like. And
could you just continue on with the previous consultant since they already have the background?
We could, but the city manager definitely wants us to do a whole new process that was promised to some of the folks that had strong opinions about City Park Pool. They want a fresh look, but that doesn't mean that the consultants that we used before couldn't put in their proposal and be chosen.
Yeah, I mean, they have to go through the bid, we have to go through the bid process with them.
Yes.
I mean, we can't like cherry pick like
You're right.
you and no one else can compete.
We do an RFP on any project this size.
I mean, I think to your point, Brian, like my intuition is that like what could we do differently to get a different result? I mean, I don't think like we don't necessarily want a different. I guess we don't want any particular result. We want like whatever the result to be. But I am incredulous that there will be a different result.
But yeah, I mean, if it sort of feels like it's to kind of make people feel more comfortable. It seems like a lot of money to spend to make people feel comfortable.
And kind of related to that as well, is there a way, a lot of the feedback was tension between the statistically valid survey, which is the valid representation of what the community at large feels, versus the vocal users of the equipment now. Is that something that we can plan to address up front or message to explain why we're putting so much faith in the statistically valid survey versus the people who come out to give their feedback instead?
You've hit on the main challenge of this process. How do we make sure that all voices are heard equally? Those that are used to advocating and used to being heard by their city council, and those that want a pool and how, I want to make sure we get a representation of everyone. And I think that that's the main thing we want to look at. No matter what the outcome, we want to make sure that all voices are heard and that all feel like they can participate. I think that's going to be a huge challenge, and this more so than many other projects. So hopefully we'll get the process down and we'll have it for the next 2 pools. So yeah, we're going to be looking for a unique consultant that is able to work with the community that is diverse and has strong opinions and
Very
strong,
passionate
opinions as we have here. And that's a good thing, but I think it really is. I think if we tried to push forward with the design as it showed now, we'd have enough opposition that it probably wouldn't finish. So we want to take time in the front end to really try to get buy-in on whatever the final design is, and then move forward with it. Yeah. So it will be.
I think one of the positives is that we've started this conversation and it will continue, so more people are already aware of it, so are anxious to provide their feedback.
So, any other questions about that? Because the other CIP projects are all moving forward. It's looking very hopeful that our 2016 Park Master Plan is going to be nearly completed at the end of this 5 years. So to me that is super exciting that we have systematically gone through and renovated all of our parks in all areas. We may have some new parks coming online, some exciting things coming online, but the investment in parks and recreation here in Iowa City is unlike anywhere else. So from that point of view, I think we're very fortunate. I should also mention though that So rec center, the two rec center improvement, or the rec center improvement line, the priority for both here and for Mercer is now replacing the roof. And that's about a $700,000 project on each one. That was a higher priority in those assessments from the rec and facilities master plan. There had been the $500,000 to $600,000 for the behind the scenes pool stuff here in this building. That's been backed up past that 5 years, as I said, because we're gonna wait and get City Park done and wait and see how the use numbers flow. So there's still a commitment to do that. There's a commitment to keep this pool operating with whatever we need to. And, you know, if something blew out and it was going to be $1 million to fix it, we would be back in front of council asking. But we will do our best to keep everything else operating until we get to a point where we can make a final decision on what happens with the two indoor pools. But that is pushed off down the road past where City Park pool. We'll get through that first. Does that sound fun?
So I was going to say, I think the staff, this has been like a very rocky journey through the capital improvement strategic plan. I think the staff did, I just want to say, like, I think y'all did a very good job. I was here for some of those meetings where people got like kind of nasty and made it like less about the thing about conceptually that they didn't like and like more about, oh, staff were like doing specific things to manipulate the process, which was incredibly unprofessional and just not truthful. But I think you all like handled it with incredible grace and professionalism.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so speaking of that, we continue to meet with the Save Robert A. Lee pool folks, counting pool people using the pool. And you have the counts each month in your packet included. Each of the months we've shown you so far, they have not agreed with our counts, and we have sat down and met with them and walked through. I'll have more information in your next packet to hopefully explain what's not happening or how this is happening. But basically, they are continuing to count bodies in the actual water every half hour. We are counting people coming through our checkpoints. So as they're counting people every half hour, the same person may be counted 2 or 3 times, depending on how long they stay in the pool. Not that that's wrong, I'm just saying that that's what they're counting. We're counting bodies through the front counter. In the end, I think we're both going to keep counting our own ways. However, realize that as we compare numbers down the line, we're looking for trends of use. So theoretically, if our numbers go up 20%, their numbers should go up 20%, even though they're 2 different counts. We are counting aqua fitness and swim lesson and swim team participants as per registration. They're counting bodies in the water. So that varies too, because we count 8 people that are registered even if 6 only come to that class that day. If they're registered, we're not counting them twice. We're just saying that's what's registered. Neither one is going to be perfectly exact, but the more and more that we work on these and look at these, I want to say that either one's going to show you the trends that you need to see. And they're never going to match up person to person, but I'm more and more convinced that we're going to end up with numbers you can rely on, 2 sets of them probably. And Brad and I have been meeting with them and talking with them regularly. We're very convinced, we continue to want to have the dialogue and keep working. So I don't want you to feel like we're at loggerheads. It's not that. It's just that we're going to have to continue the dialogue, and it's not a perfect form yet. We're hopefully moving in that direction, so, from my perspective. So you can ask the friends if they have a different. But we've sat down and reviewed video footage with them. We've had long discussions, and in the end, I think we're going to keep on counting different numbers. But that's where we're at. Okay. 2 things for housekeeping as we enter the new year. And you're all here, so you don't have to remember this so much, but please remember to RSVP to Gabe when you get the email with your packet on the Thursday or Friday before the meeting. Reply back just to Gabe saying, yes, I plan to be there, no, I won't, so we make sure we have quorum. And just your friendly reminder that items that are Parks Commission agenda type items should not be discussed with more than 1 other member outside of the meetings, because we we have open meeting laws. Everything should happen here in the meetings. So if you happen to meet in the coffee shop and two of you are talking, that's fine. If the third person walks up and says, hey, I wonder what's going on with Happy Hollow Park. And don't talk about it there, wait and talk about it in the meeting. If you have any questions in between the meetings, please, by all means, email me or call me. Anything that your neighbors or friends ask about parks, I'd love to answer and help you look like the most knowledgeable person in your neighborhood. So please feel free to call us and pass along any kind of questions. You don't have to wait for a meeting for those. So that's the end of my.
Great. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask, how many more parks need to be renovated?
Gosh, we're down to about 12, maybe?
Yeah, it might be less than that.
Yeah, I want to say there's like 6 or 7 more in the CIP coming up.
Okay.
So we're getting there. Yeah.
That small park in the Longfellow neighborhood, I forgot the name of it, but it's behind people's homes. It seems like.
Oh, Rogers Green.
Yeah, is that one of the parks in the list or not?
Not really. We do work on the Longfellow Trail and keep that maintained. We've done some meetings from time to time to see if people wanted more or different in that the Rogers Green area, and typically the answer's been no. You want to just keep it as a green space. Yeah.
Where's that? Should I picture?
Is that adjacent to Longfellow Elementary?
Yeah, it's right across the street from Longfellow Trail. So it's all the same piece of property, and we do have a regular volunteer that does natural areas work on both sides of the creek there. So essentially, Rogers Green and Longfellow Trail are the same park, if you want to think of it that way.
Okay.
It's sort of hidden. It's kind of neat when you discover it, so it might be a fun challenge.
I would try to list all the ones we have left to go, but I'll forget. Forget some.
All right, moving on to Brandon.
Okay. Well, speaking of the recreation master plan, our staff, our recreation division staff, has started digging into that and looking forward to the future as far as what that means for our recreation division. So we started in with some goal setting sessions, some visioning sessions where we're taking the feedback from the community, taking the recommendations from that recreation master plan, thinking about how does that apply in our world of recreation, and really focusing on goals and then also key performance indicators that are going to drive those goals forward as we look into the future. So we're going to be setting short-term, midterm, so short-term would be like some immediate things that we can do into the next 2 or 3 years, midterm goals, and then some longer-term goals. And we're going to focus on being able to look at like communications, partnerships and outreach, facilities, programming, staffing, both from an hourly staffing and a full-time staffing perspective, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, and looking at those goals, coming up with key performance indicators that will really be able to allow us to be able to tell the story through data showing that we're making progress on those goals coming forward. And I'll be able to, of course, share those with you in the future when we get those established and be able to provide those updates on how those goals are coming along. So we're excited to be able to finally have that recreation master plan approved. And so that allows us to be able to do the work on our side of things to be able to move that forward. So more updates to come on that.
And so that's primarily on the programming and the user side. Everything else feels like we've overshadowed that all with facilities.
Yeah.
They're figuring out how to get people in to use all the facilities.
Right. And what does the community want to see from a programming and events perspective? Just a couple other things right now. This has kind of been our catch-up time as the winter breaks here. We've been dealing with illnesses and vacations and things like that. So this is actually the first time in a while it feels like I have a full staff. So it's been fun to do those visioning sessions with a full team. But this is really kind of our catch-up time where we can kind of look at our policies, revisit some of those, update some of our manuals, make sure that everything's in check as we head into the new year. A couple upcoming things. Our roller skating is starting this weekend again. We've taken a break for just a little bit over the winter break, but we're going to be starting back up. That's every Saturday, most Saturdays, unless we have something that's going on in the gym. We've added in more recently, this last year, a youth time from 2 to 4. So those that are beginners can come and try on skates, try to get a feel for it. Otherwise, it's a little bit more overwhelming from the 5:30 to 7:30 skate session, which is usually pretty busy for us. It's a little bit more challenging for the young skaters to come out and try it. So we've added another time on just because it's been such a popular thing for us, and it's free. It's a great thing for families to come out, and they don't really have to spend much money. On Sunday, January 29th, we have our Science and Technology Open House here at this facility. We're going to be able to show off a lot of the new cool toys that we have. Joyce has gotten some drones, some robotics, some other things that are more recent that we want to show off to the community, show what we're doing with those things. So that event is from 2 to 4 on Sunday, January 29th. So if you're looking for something to do, feel free to stop by. That's my updates.
Martin Luther King Day.
Oh yes, thank you. We will be hosting an event with some other partners out at the Mercer Park Aquatic Center on Monday. And the event is going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and it's a free event. We're going to have a variety of different service projects going on. There's going to be a march that's starting from UAY, headed over to Mercer. They start at 9:30 for that. There's a lunch that's included. I think it's walking tacos. There is an award ceremony, and I think that's going to be happening around noon. And then there's some other entertainment options as well.
Yours truly will be in this program.
Please
come out to see me.
Great.
I'll be sure to entertain you.
That's the dancing, right? You're going to be showing us the others.
I can't tell.
Great, thanks so much, Brett.
Thank you.
The roller skating, is that in the gym down here?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it's every Saturday?
Most Saturdays, yeah. If there's an event that's in there, which is kind of rare that we have a Saturday event in there. But yeah, most Saturdays.
Tyler.
Awesome. Well, kind of the same. Winter gives us a little break in some areas, but then we pick up in other areas. So things like structure pruning of trees. You'll see our crews around town doing that. Not to be confused with what the electric companies do on some other streets. So sometimes there's some confusion out there with that. If it looks like it's had a really, really hard haircut, then the electric company probably did it. If it's a little more structured, it was probably our crews. But we try to get out there this time of year. There's pests on some types of trees and diseases. That winter's the best time because those aren't active. So oaks are a great example for that. So we try to do most of our pruning in the winter unless it's a hazard or something that comes up in the middle of the year. Snow, we had some snow, came at probably the worst time ever, right at the beginning of a long holiday weekend. Staff is very thankful, a lot of staff came in on their scheduled days off to keep those areas cleared and then get the drifts when it drifted back in. So we were able to do that. A lot of credit goes to Josh Worrell, our assistant superintendent, for getting our areas, all the maps down and getting a backup person for each route that we have, because we touch areas all over town, random little one lot sidewalks in places. So by getting those and having someone to pick it up, so it's not just in someone's head that isn't there that day, we've been able to cut down on our complaints by almost completely cut down on all complaints. So that's been good for us this year. Let's see, we're working on some RFPs right now. So for projects to start this next year for natural areas work, so REAP grant work in Hickory Hill, invasive species removal work in a few different areas and some woodlands. So we're working on getting those out so we can get proposals for those. I'm hopeful, but we have been having issues with, even after a contractor is selected, them being able to hire enough staff to complete those projects in a timely manner. So we've seen some delays with multiple different contractors, not just one. So that tells me there's a trend out there. Everyone's struggling to find people to do that work, even on the private sector side. So we'll work through that. We're also working on getting our next tree planting project out for proposals from contractors. We notified the whole neighborhood in the southeast side, so points around Whispering Meadows Park. Kind of bounded by Nevada on the west, and kind of backing up all the way like to Pinto, if you're familiar with that area, on the east, and then up to Lakeside on the, I guess that would be the north, sort of. So we went around and put door hangers on every single door in that neighborhood. Those residents do have up until the 20th of this month to reach out if they have any comments, concerns, if they would prefer not to have a tree in the right of way adjacent to their property. They've been given that option. We've had maybe 3 people say they didn't want one, and of those, only 2 of those we had planned on a tree for those properties. So we're giving everyone that option. Luckily, Raylan and I put all the flyers up. We picked one of those nice 50-degree days, so beautiful time to go walk through the neighborhood. So we're still working on that. Also kind of on the tree side of things, we removed almost all of the ash from City Park. So those were declining pretty quickly, and some of them were becoming hazards, and others were soon to follow. So we are working on our next round of grant proposals for a grant through the state. That's for emerald ash borer and derecho recovery. So we're looking to put probably 60-some trees in the lower City Park is what that grant would fund. So replacing almost all, if not all, of the ash trees with more diverse selection of species, and getting some trees and the next generation of trees growing in that park. So those are kind of the highlights for the winter. And other than that, we're working on equipment and maintenance of buildings and things like that. Any questions?
This is just about a certain group of trees. Across from Polyas Pizza, there's these 3 trees. I can't tell if they're ash trees. Aren't you all, I don't know how you would say it, but doctoring them in some way, some of the ash trees?
Some of them, yes.
Do you know if those 3 are being doctored?
I'm not sure on those specific.
Okay.
They're marked if they're getting treatments.
They should have a little silver circle tag on them.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so yeah, then those would be treated. And that's another thing we're working on right now, is getting that out for bids again, because the previous rounds were, we had to go back out again because we were past our renewals. So those will be maybe the same company, maybe a new company, but they will continue to be treated going forward at this point. So.
I don't remember if this came up in previous years, but totally appreciate the snow being cleared on the trails, but it leaves these bristles, these long yellow plastic bristles. Is there a way to minimize that? I pick them up when I see them, but sometimes there's just a huge number, like it ran over a rock or something.
No, that's a great question. It's an unfortunate side effect of the brooms that we have on the equipment, and some of those, well, most of those pieces of equipment that have the brooms on them, that's the only option of a clearing kind of device for them. Once they start to wear out, they really lose a lot. We try to replace them before they get to that point, but it's kind of a balancing act. But yeah, definitely thank you for picking them up. I know I've heard from others that go and pick them up and on stretch to the trails too. So.
It is probably fair to say the operator doesn't even see them because it's such a flying snow type of thing that
especially this first snow this year, we had troubles. It was so fine and powdery to be able to see while operating, and then it was also getting into the air intake of the tractors and making them lose power. So it just kind of depends on the type of snow too. So, but yes, thank you for helping clean it up because I know it can be a nuisance.
Appreciate you.
Just so grateful for city staff and all that you do in maintaining all the facilities and the parks. It's just beautiful. So thank you very much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. As far as chair's report, I don't have anything. Just we didn't get a chance last month to meet, and so just wanted to wish our prior board or commission members, just thank them for all that they did. I know a number of them had been serving for some time, so they'll be missed. But we are so grateful for Dolores and Regional that are here. So thank you so very much for coming. At this time, we'll go around and we'll just ask the other commission members if there's anything that they would like to discuss or anything for future meetings. Maybe we'll start with Missy on this side.
I don't have anything.
I don't know. I think the only thing I was thinking of is just to know this, maybe the 6 parks or the parks left, and like just plans for them. Like I have this vision of like this huge accessible structure, but or just maybe going forward, seeing if there is something like a wheelchair could go on to or that kind of thing. Yeah.
That sounds good.
I can do that for a report.
Thank you.
Oh, I would second that.
Okay.
And I don't have anything else to add.
I don't have anything to add. Dolores?
No, I don't have any.
This is kind of a silly thing that just popped into my head for Tyler, but as I walk along the Greenway, sometimes I see things like people doing research out there. I've seen a bunch of mouse traps. I've seen signs saying they're doing research. I've seen trail cams. Do you have visibility into all that? So if I'm being nosy and want to know what's going on, is that something we could reach out to you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. Typically, I should know if they are, and usually it's Dr. Sander at the university. It's usually her students doing those, whether they're grad students or undergrads or a combination. But yeah, they've done a couple of different projects, anything from listening at night to sounds and coming up with the research from that to some proper trapping and releasing to other bird type surveys and things like that.
All right, neat.
Good question.
That's all.
One thing, I don't know if this is not a high priority thing, but so I use the Scott Park dog, the Reader's Ranch dog park. One thing I've always kind of bugged me a little bit. There's like the dog park Thornberry seems to have a lot of amenities and has like a paved trail, and Scott Park or the Reader's Ranch is a lot more basic, and they kind of pay the same fee to use both of them. I wonder if at some point talk about like what ways to improve that area, because it's kind of just like a fenced-in area. It's super muddy, and so anytime you like the other one has like who I should direct this to, but like it has a paved trail around it. So I don't know if there's like different ways to make it like nicer and more kind of
Is that in the CIP?
Yeah,
or did
so
you get
actually
enough
there is a
funding?
CIP project coming up. I was just in my mind, I think it's 2026, but it has money for improvements at both. But that was exactly what we were thinking at Rita's Ranch is could we do some sort of trail around the inside edge? Thornberry needs fencing. There's some different things, but that's exactly what would be included in that project.
Prior to that, you will see it as a project that's already been bid. They just didn't have time to start it before the seasons changed. A sidewalk that leads from the new neighborhood to the south. It'll lead and connect into the park to the entrance there. And then the part of the parking area, the main parking area for the dogs, dog area there will be repaved as well. So it's a nicer, more ADA accessible and paved area. So we're adding those are already in the plans, but we just do have future plans for more too.
Is there so there's like a big kind of green area, green space, I think it would be to the west of the dog park?
It's a stormwater retention area.
Yeah.
So after a big rain, go look, it's all filled.
It's all, yeah.
Yeah, it limits what we can do with it there.
Yeah. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. thank you so much to all the commission members. Motion to adjourn, I guess we don't.
You do.
Adjourn. Thank you so very much.